Um, we are lucky to have her with us because this book is her forte. Nanda
Oh,
is bilingual by profession. Also, she is fluent in German. She's a German teacher. She also is fluent in English, and she has been working at MS University, Baroda for a long time. From MS, she shifted to Bombay University, and for the last 2 years, she has taken a lane on her job because she wants to do her PhD. And you won't believe this how lucky we are because she's doing research on Tin Drum and Midnight's Children. I will
oh,
leave it to her to explain what is the topic that she has zoomed in on, because I think finding a topic is what research is all about. The rest flows very easily. So our book club next month will complete 2 years, and we'll enter into our third year. We have been uh, meeting physically before we went online, but COVID taught us some lessons, and one of the lessons was to connect from home. And here we are not giving up ever since COVID has struck. We have been meeting regularly every month online. But the advantage is we have had people coming from Portugal and joining us, people coming from MS University, Baroda, and joining us, from other states, from local states, and also from France. So, again, a very warm welcome to all of you all. This is a very exciting book, and we are very happy that Nanda is our captain. So, one quick round of introductions, everyone. Just say your name and what you are doing so that we get acquainted. Many of you are new. After that, Nanda will talk about her research and open up the room for discussion.
that is how it is. Got it. Pause. This is how it records, no?
No, it's recording. It's recording. Who's
Should
introducing?
I, should I go first? No, let's introduce.
Hey, Carlos, can you hear me?
Now I
Yes,
can,
yes,
but
all of
please
us.
put on your. I think some of us
Video.
can put off our, audio so that we can hear her. Who's speaking?
Okay, I'll go
Hi.
ahead.
Oh, yeah, you go first. Okay.
Recording or
Yeah,
not?
I can't make out.
Yeah, it's recording. It's recording.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, this is Carlos Lewis. I'm doing my master's at Chogle's Margao. I'm doing my second year right now. And the Tin Drum is in our syllabus, and therefore we had to read it fast because we wanted to attend this book chat. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Alicia, go ahead. Introduce.
Alicia, go ahead.
Can't hear you.
Your mic
You're on
is on
mute.
mute.
Please unmute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm from Chogles. I'm doing my master's in English. So, Ma'am Shibangi is my teacher, and we are here because of her. She told us to come here. And I also read the book and I watched the movie too. That's all. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Mm,
Yes,
I-
so it's me now. Okay,
Okay.
hi, uh, you wanted to say something?
Please introduce yourself one line, and then we'll move on because otherwise we are holding up the discussion.
Okay. My name is Chashmi. I am a Chogle College student again, Ma'am Shibangi student. I have read the book and watched the film, and it was a weird read for sure. But okay, so let's go ahead.
Shubangi, since this is your team, let's.
Savya, thank you so much for letting my students be a part of this discussion since it's a part of their modern European paper. So I thought it would be a great idea for them to be a part of this discussion. I read this book a long time ago, so I might be a little rusty here and there, but I want my students to participate. So that was my main aim So it's come at quite a good time for us. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Looking forward.
Stanley? You're on mute.
I said I'm an absolute newcomer to this, so I think I will let the experts speak first. Because it is a huge 585 pages book, for one thing. And the movie went on to 2 hours and 45 minutes, if I am right. Quite some time that we have devoted to that. But I think we'll let the teacher, Shubhangi, get into it first.
Yeah.
Then we'll see what we can contribute to that. Yeah?
Thanks. Lizanne, come.
My name is Lizanne. I'm a professional. I work in tech, but have a love for literature.
Oh, that way. I didn't know that was the introduction that you wanted me to do.
Yeah, so you can do
Anyway.
it now.
Yes, Sarojini, please, quick.
I'm Sarojini Souza. I'm a retired educationist in the field of education for 33 years, and I continue to be a learner.
Okay.
Dr. Ruhi.
Yeah. So I'm a doctor, and my work involves research in public health, but reading is my passion.
To understand the book better, I watched the film.
Nanda, the field is yours. Welcome again.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Nanda Nandedkar. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Savia Vigas for inviting me to this session of book discussion in Magua Book Club, Goa. The novel Teen Drum, which is originally written in German with the title Die Blechtrommel. Blech means tin and Trommel means drum. So the Blechtrommel, which was originally written in German by Günter Grass, is one of the books that I have chosen for analysis of my research work. Another book is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, and there is a lot of similarities between the two books because the hero, the main characters, that is both the protagonists, the personal life and the story of the nation are interwoven. So I'm glad that today I will be discussing with you all about this book, and I'm looking forward to interesting session. So why I have chosen this research topic is historical and political changes in the 20th century became catalyst for new memory studies. The topic of my research is cultural historical relevance of memory in the Teen Drum, that is Die Blechtrommel, and Midnight's Children. So 40 years after the Holocaust, the generation that witnessed the Shoah began to fade away. This affected a major change in the forms of cultural remembrance. Without organic autobiographic memories, so societies are solely dependent on media to transmit experiences. More generally, the shape of contemporary media societies give rise to the assumption that today, perhaps more than ever, cultural memory is dependent on media technologies and the circulation of media products. Keeping this in mind, this research, that is my research, focus on remembering the past as memory is rooted in cultural history. So that is the background. And both the authors, that is Günter Grass and Salman Rushdie, they don't want to teach history, but through their lived experiences, they want the readers to plunge into the history, which would be a great relevance for the next generation also, because historical data, facts, figures, with that we cannot remember the history, but only through lived experiences or through the narration or the integration of this narrative of autobiographical memories, one can relate with the past and then also can be a guideline for the future. And when the individual experiences become communicable, then they are also collective, and then they become also cultural. So these personal experiences are they serve as cultural memory. So that is my topic. So this about the book, I would say Günter Grass began writing this book in 1956. That was his first novel, and it was published in 1959. And it was an instant success in Germany, and also later on an international sensation. Based on this film, a film version of this book was also released in 1979 by Volker Schlondorff, which was made by him, and it also received Academy Award for the best film in foreign languages. Now, people say that this is the greatest novel of the 20th century, or I would say it is the 20th century, because Günter Grass has recreated through his personal experiences and narrated through Oskar Matzerath the entire story. And what makes this book so great, because Grass has captured this very exquisitely, this strangeness, like the girl said, it was so crazy. So this eerie strangeness which was there in this misfortune times of Germany, that he has captured it very lucidly and represented it. The story takes place during Europe's troubled times, that we know that is the First World War, then the rise of the Hitler. Then in 1938 was that Kristallnacht, that the night of the broken shattered glasses, that the Jews were, synagogues were burnt and Jews were killed and murdered and sent to concentration camps. Then in 1939, the Second World War began with attack on Poland, and then the rebuild of Germany after the Second World War. So this is the backdrop, this is the historical background in which the story is set, Günter Grass, and the story is set in Danzig. Danzig, that is the birthplace of Günter Grass. And that was at that time in Germany, but today it is Gdansk in Poland. And his mother was Kashubian, that is the ethnic race, which belongs to the North Poland in those times. So there are many reasons why he wrote this book. First of all, after the Second World War, when he visited his native place, it was bombed and burnt. His Danzig was no more there. And he wanted that Danzig should be there, his memory, the city, this place, it should be there in the memory of the people, in his own memory and also the memory of the people. And that is why this work. Secondly, he wanted to say that people thought that Hitler was a demon and he misled the citizens, he misled the people of Germany. But it was wrong, because everything happened in broad daylight, the atrocities against the Jews. And each and every German had a share in this entire thing which happened against the injustice which happened against the Jews. And so he wants to reawaken this memory, the feeling of guilt, the feeling of burden which is there, and confessing that we all are equally responsible for what had happened against the Jews, and that he wanted to portray. Because after the Second World War, there was literature written, but there was a big silence. Nobody dared to touch this topic of what happened about the Nazism. And it was Günter Grass who was first, who again dealt with this theme. So that is about the book, Günter, The Tin Drum. Now, when we come to the story is, the protagonist is Oskar Matzerath. And the first very sentence that I am in German, it is written, Ich bin ein Insasse einer Heil- und Pflegeanstalt, that I am an inmate of a mental institution, that mental asylum. This itself tells about how much you have to trust him. Is he a reliable narrator? Should we narrate him whatever he says? And then he begins the story, and before he begins his own story, he tells the story of his maternal grandparents, how they met, how his mother was conceived in that potato field, and then his own birth, where he was reluctant to leave the womb of his mother, because he did not wanted to enter this world of hypocrisy and injustice which he saw. And but his mother promised him a tin drum on his 3rd birthday. And so he, when he received his tin drum on his 3rd birthday, what he wanted to do was not to leave this drum. It was always with him. He would never part with it, and very obsessively only play the drum. And he used to talk to his drum and tell the secrets. And by drumming, he used to draw back the memories, draw for the memories and about from the past, and tell about the shortcomings which were there in the present. So that was about the tin drum. And on the 3rd birthday also, Oscar Matzerath is not a normal boy. He's an unusual boy. He's a dwarf, but intellectually he's like a grown-up man. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
He's grown up, and he uses his supernatural gift he has of shattering the glass. That is, once somebody tries to take his tin drum away, and he screams so loudly that the glass shatters. And at that time, he realizes that he has this gifted, that is the skill he has. And then he sometimes uses it also in a wrong manner, I would say. And there are a lot of various themes in this book, various characters like Oscar, his mother Agnes Matzerath, father Alfred Matzerath, who had a grocery store, mother who marries Alfred Matzerath, but she is in love with her cousin brother Jan Bronsky, and she continues with her love affair even after her marriage. And this is what Oscar observes in his childhood days, that the family is playing the cards on the table. And
I would like everyone to reconnect, because the Zoom meeting will disconnect in 10 minutes. Please reconnect, because we have booked 1.5 hours of time.
So I have to leave and like rejoin again.
Okay. Please reconnect after it breaks, huh? In 10 minutes.
Same link, yeah? We should use the same
Please
link.
continue, Nanda.
Okay. So these were the different topics which are dealt here in this, is about different characters which are very complex to understand. Then about the Danzish, which he wants that people should remember. Then the society, which was about the duality with the double standards, which was there. And then the memories of the past, which he always wanted to reawaken. So maybe now anybody else wants to say something? Those who have read the book.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Yes.
I like the way that Oscar Matzerath used the tin drum, especially to make his mental agonies or anxieties to be known to the world. So at every moment he didn't agree with what was happening around, he would just play the tin drum. So it was like a protest,
Yes,
not just
definitely.
against his own family, but against everything wrong that he felt was going on. I just realized, it was not just his mental state that he was trying to, display by playing that tin drum, but he was also trying to speak for all the others who were against the system. Yeah, that is
Yes.
what I liked in the book.
Yeah. So Grass also wanted to say that Oscar Matzerath is the representative of the German society.
Right, right.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, so actually for me, when I started reading the book, I'm not very much into this sort of magic realism and fantasy. So it was really difficult for me to read the book. And somebody put the right word. It was like very weird. Everything was very weird. And I honestly just persisted because it was for the Margaon Book Club, and kept reading and kept reading and kept reading. And still, I was not really understanding what was going on and what was the need for all these strange, weird things that were happening. Like, why did there have to be this doubt about whether he was the son of that Jan Bronsky or he was the son of Mazarat? And then he suddenly decides not to grow up at 3 years old. And then what is the significance of that voice shattering the glass? Then I couldn't understand what was the whole significance of that mother of his seeing that, at the fishing in the beach, the head of that animal, and then all those eels coming out from that. And then why she suddenly then starts eating all this fish and then just dies basically. And then after that, not being sure whether Kurt is this Oscar's son or whether that is Mazarat's son. And all the whole thing, such a weirdness in the whole thing. And then finally, I decided to watch the movie thinking that maybe the movie might explain something to me. And the movie had exactly what was in the book. So it presented it pictorially and visually, but I couldn't get anything more from the movie. And then finally, I think in the end, the sort of conclusion was, and that seems to be what is confirmed now from what you all are saying, that everything was so weird and everything, because it was just showing that that time was like that. And everything was so horribly upside down and such a strange and unusual time, and everything that is happening in that book is probably something showing that the system is all wrong. I don't know. I'm just wondering. And I still sort of don't understand the significance of these specific things that I mentioned, apart from maybe just a general thing that everything was weird that time. And so he's trying to show in this book how everything is weird. But I don't know.
Maybe Nanda, you can react to after everybody has kind of given their comments. So that would be nice. Anyone else would like to go?
Yeah, me, Jashmi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what Ruhi ma'am was saying, it's mostly because of the uncertainty and the confusion
Please put
going
on your
on.
video.
Oh, okay.
So that we can hear you speak.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
lovely.
So I think it's more to do with the confusion and uncertainty going on in Germany, Poland, Germany. So that's what the author wanted to convey through his work. And I think he quite successfully did that. And when I started reading the book, it had long sentences and the places were quite unfamiliar for me. So reading the name itself was a task for me. And I found it really annoying a bit. But yeah, I read the book because ma'am asked us to, and it was unique, I would say. Plus, I like the way the author, kind of related to the little normal things in life. For example, in the chapter, The Photo Album, he calls the photo album, like he describes it this way: what would I do without this open family grave that shows all things so clearly? So the words used here are open family grave, and I would have never thought of that. So these things were the little details that kept me going, to read the book, apart from that being compulsory for us. But yeah, I liked reading it. It was different. That's all.
Yes, please. Carlos? Shubhangi, Lizanne?
Yeah, I already spoke.
Norbert?
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah, please. Please go ahead.
So when all of us are saying that it's weird, it's bizarre, it's strange, I think that is the point of the novel, because war is strange. Holocaust was strange. Whatever happened was bizarre. How do you make sense of all that? How do you make sense of Holocaust? How do you make sense of the fact that Hitler, or it was not even Hitler, it was, normal German people who were, conspicuous with all these things, right? There had to be some sort of, what I would say, cooperation coming from, because there was no resistance as such. They were also as much involved in it. So it is weird because war is weird. How can you explain Holocaust? How can you explain to somebody that Hitler killed, he wiped away Jews and he used to shove them into gas chambers? How do you explain that to somebody? It is bizarre because war is bizarre. And I think that's the entire point of the novel, to make it weird, because at the end of the day, war is weird, right? And like that philosopher Adorno, he says that there can be no poetry after Auschwitz. What happened in Auschwitz, the horror of the gas chambers, there can be no poetry after that. So I think Gunter Grass wants to hold people accountable for what they had done and the horrors that Germany had unleashed on this particular community, that is the Jews. And Oscar Matzerath is a very pertinent character, because he refuses to grow up, because he doesn't want to grow up and be a part of this adult world. So he's almost like subverting adulthood. And he uses tin drum. I was reading in one of the interviews, so I guess Gunter Grass says that he picked up tin drum.
Yeah.
Yes, it's recording.
Yeah, Shubhangi.
So I was just saying that war is bizarre and it is weird, and how do you make sense of it, right? So yeah, that's the point of the novel. And the other thing that I was saying, that Oscar Matzerath decides not to grow up because he's disgusted by the world of the adults and he doesn't want to be a part of it. And I was reading in one of the interviews, I guess, that Gunter Grass says that he used tin drum because there was so much noise of drums, during the Nazi Germany. There were marches always happening and always going on, ever continuing, ever present. So because of that noise, he picked up that particular instrument, you can say tin drum. And it's for him, for Oscar, it's a means of protest, right? And we see that he gets a drum and he destroys it, then he gets another drum. So yes. So yeah, these are just my thoughts on what I remember of this book, which I read a long time ago. But I remember I did enjoy reading it. It was weird, it was strange, but it is quite a memorable novel. You have to say that. It's not one of those novels which you easily forget, and one of those novels whose protagonist's name you do remember. So I think that's one of the hallmarks of a great novel. If you remember the characters' names even after 10 years of reading the book, that's a good thing. Writer has done a good job. So thank you so much.
Savya, can I go next?
Please. I'm not the gatekeeper. Just go ahead. Lovely to have comments.
So at a very superficial level, the story is about the events of Nazi Germany, the fact that Danzig was actually getting transitioned from a German outpost to from a Polish outpost to German, and then towards the end we even see the Russians invading, and also we find this character of Oscar to be very intriguing, interesting character. He's quite a he's quite a unique person, I would say, and his obsession with the tin drum. We have to sort of read deeper into it. So at a very superficial level, the story is about these facts, right? But like after reflecting a little bit, I think there were three things that really stood out to me. So I did a little reading about the form of the novel, right? So what type of a novel is this to even begin with, right? Because I don't understand magical realism. I haven't really read Salman Rushdie. And I figured it's something called a picaresque novel, and the protagonist being called a picaro, right? So a picaresque novel refers to, and I quote, definitions from what I read, is purely just, a first-person narrative. It has to do with truths where the author is trying to actually, speak its truths through the narrative, what's happening around. And usually the characters are rogue, or a low-born adventurer. So this person is not, a typical hero character that has typically been written about in the previous novels. So it was very much a form choice that Gunter Grass, I think, has taken here to come up with, a form that is very different from your normal, hero in a sense, right? And he's not an anti-hero either. He's just a very, he seems to be rambling all over the place, seeing things and just narrating as is. But I think it's up to the reader to kind of take one step deeper and try and map out what's actually happening in the background of, this historical facts of German invasion, Nazism, etc., as well as the psychological aspects of what's happening around him as well. So the first thing I would like to comment is on form. The second thing I'd like to comment on specifically with this is, the fact that he chose his condition, right? So I think that's a important point to kind of talk about, and it kind of frames the entire argument of the book as well, where he basically believes himself to be superior beyond, and well advanced in intellect beyond the adults in the room. And again, by choice, at his third birthday, he kind of, flings himself onto the floor and, puts himself into this condition, right? So what does that really tell us? That kind of tells us that, if you understand Nazism to its core, racial superiority was, one of the key tenets of the belief. And by this child choosing to stay, physically deformed in that context, kind of throws up an interesting question about what does, Nazism truly stand for, right? And what, can I be intellectually advanced and still have a deformed, dwarfed form of myself and not be accepted by society? So I think a lot of the story about him being, younger in looks and age, but actually being morally and intellectually superior, something that kind of is strung between the book. I think the perfect incident that perfectly captures this is the time that he's being read to by one of his aunts, where he's trying to get educated after being kicked out of school. And, there's this comparison between the fact that he's interested in Goethe as much as he's interested in this racy story of Rasputin, right? And I think the words he used there are, it's a conflicting harmony, one that defines his entire life. So that, I think, is a key aspect of the book that I think, I'd love to kind of, hear from everybody about what they thought. And then the third and final thing that really kind of came to me was, this pure aspect of what ma'am spoke about earlier, which is the guilt that was felt by every German for having been a part of Germany as a bystander while, Jews were being prosecuted. His father, in fact, being very much an active participant and, very much, bourgeois aspiration of wanting to even be a part of like the ranks of Nazi Germany at that time. So I think an interesting story that spoke to this kind of aspiration of wanting to be in control of what's happening was when he meets Brebar for the first time. Or what's his name? Sorry, I forget.
Bebra.
Anyway, Bebra, right. When he's meeting Bebra for the first time, there's like this really interesting arc of the story where Bebra is saying, if you don't control, others will control you. And I feel that is so much of the reflection of how his father also tries to derive his life of participating in Nazi Germany at the time, and how that there are various events that happen in Oscar's life where he's trying to kind of proactively change the narrative of what's happening. Also, would love to kind of hear what you guys thought about that aspect, right? So the guilt of being a part of Nazi Germany, but also wanting to take control of your narrative is what the third theme was, I think, coming out of the book for me. I'll pause there. Yeah.
One more thing I would like to add here is what makes this book so difficult to understand, because it is overloaded with so much details. Yeah, for example, when he is traveling with his father, then he mentions all the street names, the tram routes, the inscriptions on the buildings, then the cemeteries, all the smell and the smell of the surroundings. So this is too much information. And then in chapter number 32, should I or should I not? In German, it is written Soll ich or the Soll ich nicht, in which for first 4 pages, he has described the history of Danzig city. So sometimes it is overload of information for readers, and they may not have so much patience to read through all these things. And how after the First World War, the League of Nations, they declared Danzig as an independent port city. But Germans and Poles, they were fighting over it. So they decided that we'll find a solution, that the Germans will run the city government, and the Polish people, they will have the ports and the independent port and the post office. And that is why he sometimes says, and 75 to 80% of the Danzig city people were Germans. And that is why he always keeps on saying, I'm not sure whether my father is a German, or Jan Bronsky, who is a Polish, and father is a German. Yeah, the mother is, he sees his mother having the affair with his cousin brother, and that brings doubt to his mind that whether I am, but people say that he is the son of Alfred Matzerath only. And this Danzig city was continuously captured, abandoned, conquered. And he has first mentioned, first came the Rugen, then the Gepiden and all those things, and then the Kashuban, they came. And because of this changing of boundaries, this unsettledness is also reflected in Oscar, in his own personality, I would like to say. So that is one point I would say here regarding this overburden of information, or that is the style of writing, very playfully, very poetic language. He has used it while writing.
I have a question, Nanda ma'am. Do you think that if you were to view Oscar as like purely from an autistic child's perspective, right? Is this like, is there any debate about, what is Oscar? Like, is he just a, like what is exactly his mental state, his physical state exactly? Like one thing that crossed my mind is maybe this is the perspective of somebody who has lived life through Nazi Germany, and it's, like the oncoming of World War II as well, as an autistic child.
Maybe Oscar is the one who feels that the Nazis have robbed the childhood of the entire generation. And that is why he is protesting against the grown-up world. That can be also one point here, as Oscar, the way he keeps on protesting with his tin drum.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name. You just said something about that autistic child.
Lizanne. It's Lizanne.
Lizanne, because saying Setu host on the thing, I don't know what.
Oh, sorry, I'll change that.
Okay. Yeah, so what Lizanne said about the autistic child, actually just thinking about it, maybe that's part of why everything is described in so much detail, in the sense that, these autistic children don't have much of a distinction between what is the main thing and what is the sort of, the appendages as such, but everything is equal importance. Like there was this big advertisement I saw once where they showed how an autistic child looks at the world. Everything is just as important, so maybe that's why also there are all these descriptions which are detailed about every small thing possible. So yeah.
I don't know, Nanda would be the best person to answer this, but I think that's more of a ploy, because the Nazi voice at that time is such an authorial voice that any other voice is rendered liminal in that space. So Oscar, by taking this duality of not growing up, of just having a drum and not expressing his real voice, takes on the conditions of an autistic child to be able to promote other voices, other saner thoughts. I don't know, this is just a feeling that I thought, but when I saw the film, immediately afterwards, it was made in the 70s or 80s, I don't remember. And all those scenes that you described, Ruhi, because they were so unusual, the whole setting of those scenes was so unusual. They just stayed on in my mind. And that time, it was not easy to get translations, and I don't speak German. But as a writer, I can say, that those images to a large extent have created certain thoughts. For example, using a non-hero as as a narrator, of having somebody who's not in full control of things. It's such a lovely way of expressing the duality of situations, or other voices that are not part of the prevailing motive of the story, like in this case, Nazi Germany. Yes, that's all. Nanda, maybe.
And one another thing that I would like to say, that what makes this novel so disturbing is that Oscar is such a difficult character to sympathize with. He talks about the death of his family members who are close to him without any emotions. And he sees all these horrific events like the Kristallnacht, where he goes with his father, and the sacred books from the synagogue are brought on the streets and burnt,
vandalized, yeah,
set ablaze. And the father, he is warming his fingers in this fire. So that is something weird. Moreover, there is also one, the onion seller. There is one theme also, in which the people from the privileged society, they go to that onion seller. There is a club, and they cut onions, and they cry out. So usually crying, the having tears is interpreted in different ways by different people. The Nazis interpreted it as a symbol of weakness. And if they see anybody crying, they would increase, or they will be more harsher to them. So they didn't want that the common German people should have sympathy also for the Jews. Because if they show sympathy to the Jews, they will also face the same fate. But then the normal common people did not have place to go anywhere, so they would pay and go to this onion seller, cut the onions, and they cry out and release their burden. So such bizarre things were happening in the society, and people were not able to speak against the Nazi. That is also one of the things I would like to add here.
Hi, I have a question regarding Anna, the grandmother's 4 skirts that she wore, one on top of the other. What I felt was it signified protection, or some sort of a safe space, because Joseph got wait. Yeah, the grandfather, he found a safe space there, and later on the kids also just go under the skirt and they hide there. So is there any other significance associated with the skirts, or is it just protection and that's it? Because a part of the novel is devoted to explain why she wears it and how she wears it. So is there any other meaning associated with it? Just a question.
Here it would, I would say, because only to keep herself warm, that she was wearing those big 4 skirts. And then Joseph, who was running away, fleeing away from this policeman, he takes refuge under her skirts, and her mother is conceived, Oscar's mother is conceived. But only to keep warm, that is what I have understood. But he describes in very much detail about the skirts, the fear rock, in German it is written.
That's an interesting question about the skirts. Can I be heard?
Yes, yes.
These forced skirts, if they were a protection, I don't think it was much of a protection for her. From
Yours are great. Yeah.
what we could see. But then later on, if you see, if it's only for the warmth, I may beg to differ on this. If it's only for the warmth, then why does she have those hot bricks kept under her? She keeps getting those hot bricks kept, one by turn, so that inside, for some reason, she wants warmth under the skirt. So it contradicts the fact that forced skirts can give her warmth or whatever else she wanted with it. So I thought I'll just bring that up because it's not very clear whether first of all, whether the forced skirts had any significance at all by way of safety or whatever, or warmth. But the other part is that what does it matter to the entire story whether that guy had gone under the skirts and whatever happened after that? It doesn't have any kind of sequence from what I could understand. Whatever happened there could have been a one-off incident and that's it.
But it's a great opening. Isn't it?
I agree.
It's
I agree.
really genuine. Exactly. I have a question. Like, what do you guys think about Oscar and his view of love? Like, he has two main female loves, I guess, obvious loves in the book. But what do you guys think about his view of love?
Good question.
For Oscar, it was just a physical act, but not any emotional attachment with the character, with Maria or Rosavita, Bebra's girlfriend. Actually, he has affair with her also. And Maria also, who comes after the death of his mother to look into the shop. And he has first sexual encounter with her. And the father marries then Maria. And that's the reason he always has a doubt whether the Kurt is his son or Alfred Macerat's son. So for him, it was only a physical act rather than any emotional attachment.
But the character of Oscar was played by an 11-year-old boy. And some of the scenes that he really was exposed to were so adult, because I read later on he had to have actually psychiatric care. Today he's, of course, a very versatile stage actor. But at that time, he had to kind of rehabilitate him of the effect of the film. He had to have kind of psychiatric care, which was amazing. I've never seen such an adult role being played by a child. I guess the character demanded it. Anyone else would like to comment? Alicia, Lizanne, Ruhi, where are the others?
The tin to beat the tin drum. To beat the tin drum is an idiom, and it means to disturb. And the view of Oscar regarding love, I kind of feel that it was distorted, because from what he has seen is just very minimal. It's just sensual, but from what he has seen. So I think the view of love for him is quite distorted.
Ruhi, there's an option of join audio just on the top, bottom left-hand side. Alicia, would you like to say something? Is Alicia here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Just say something.
On your video, huh?
I am outside. You won't be able to see me anyway. Even okay, I'll switch it on, but you won't be able to see. See?
Okay.
You can't see anything.
Okay.
You get it?
Okay. Watch the sunset in your hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Say
Yeah, Rishia, say something. You've switched off. We can't hear you.
Oh my, oh, you wanted me. Okay.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
The I think that author, I mean, he has these ideas and he's trying to post them in a storyline. I feel like it's like that. Like I have this idea of I don't know. I have these allegories and all, they're separate in my head and I'm just posting them in a storyline. I feel like that. And what else? Mm, well, it is bizarre and I don't know what point the skirts have or anything. I just think that when I watched the movie and I had read the scenes in the book, they were like, I felt they were like literal translations of what I read, like on screen. So I don't know whether he had kept in mind that he's going to make a movie out of this. I have no idea. I'm so sorry I didn't do the background thing. But okay, Ruhi can finally hear. Great. Then as far as autism is concerned, I don't know if, like, because again he also shatters glass and stuff. So unless that's one of the symptoms, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know actually. Can someone please talk? Carlos, give me something to work with. Rashmi, Ma'am Shubhangi, it feels like I'm alone here.
No, not at all. We are all listening to you. I
are
think
here. We
Nanda
are here.
and
We are
others will respond.
That's what it's nicer when we just ping back and forth. But okay, yeah, I really don't have too much to say besides that.
Okay,
I
Alicia.
mean, just to close this chapter on the question that I was asking of autism, I think if you just read the book literally as if the events actually did happen the way it was being told, or to some extent, then it's quite certain that the facts were being distorted, or that certain things were just not possible in that context, like shattering the glass completely. Like from you, at one point he's in that town square and he completely shatters the glass. I think then it becomes clear, like we're clearly hearing the voice, as Savya was saying, of somebody who's clearly not mentally stable, or insanity. Essentially, we're hearing the voice of insanity as the voice to represent his surroundings of what was happening. So I was just asking to kind of get some opinions, but I do think if you read it literally, it's more like this person is insane, and that's their perspective.
He does start in a mental institution. I mean, at the start, so you already know he's insane. And I don't know if he killed, because I didn't read the end, but did he kill the reason he's in the hospital, sorry, mental asylum, is because he's killed someone, right? But did he?
He didn't kill Sister Dorothea, actually. She was Sister Dorothea was murdered. And once when Oscar was going in the woods for a walk, he comes across her severed finger, and then he goes to the police. He asks his friend to call the police, and he himself was put under. He goes to the police and he wants to get himself surrender to the police. And he gets put under trial, he's convicted, and then that is why he's mental asylum. But the real reason is he finds himself guilty for the death of his both the fathers, because he gives always two versions of the story of the death of Jan Bronski, who was killed during defending the Polish coast.
Yeah.
And second, his father, Alfred Matzerath, who when the Russians enter the basement, the father had the Nazi badge with him, and he wanted to get rid of that Nazi badge. So he throws that Nazi badge away, but Oscar picks up that badge and gives it back to him. And in order to protect himself, he just puts the badge in his mouth and he chokes. And the Russians get alerted because of the sound and they fire at him. And after some pages, he confesses that he had opened the pin which was of the Nazi badge, and that is why it stuck in his throat. So he is responsible for the death of his father. He was also responsible for the death of Jan Bronsky. So all this guilt which he was carrying on himself, that he wanted to get rid of, and that is why he admits himself to this mental asylum, and that is the only safest place where he feels that he can sit. Now he is 30 years old. At the end of the book, we see he's 30 years old, but still his body has not grown up, and he has a hunchback. That deformities are still there in his bodies, and he thinks now if he leaves this mental asylum, the death is still hovering, and he is followed by that black cook. There is a nursery rhyme, the hour of children. Is the black cook there? Is the black cook there? So he feels that this black cook is the evil which is following him. And even if he leaves the asylum, this evil or this guilt will always follow him, and that will keep on hovering over him. That is what is at the end of the book. But he didn't kill Dorothea. He just wants to.
But he was just guilty, like how his mother was guilty, how his father was guilty. So there's a lot of guilt going around in this novel. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So what is the significance of that that head in the which comes out from the water and those eels come out and then the mother?
Oh yeah, that was a very interesting very memorable. One of the most memorable things, because it's so graphic and disgusting to even imagine. But yeah.
Yeah. So Nanda, you have any view on that? What is that?
That was the day of Good Friday. They go to the church, and then when they go out for an outing, and then they see the head of the horse. The head of the horse is alive, and the eels are coming out of his mouth, which she finds very repulsive, and she starts vomiting. And then after coming home, she starts eating a lot of fish, and which because of the fish poison, she dies. But at that time, she was again pregnant for the second time, and she was again not sure whether it was Jan's child or Alfred's child.
Yeah, and
so what is the significance of all that? I mean, what does it signify, this weird thing of this horse's head?
I thought that it is like she used to eat eels before, and she always knew where they came from. But when she actually saw it with her own eyes, she couldn't stomach it anymore. It could also be like, the people over there at that time, they know the atrocities and crimes that are being committed, but since they don't see it directly, maybe they are a bit ignorant to it. I don't know, maybe.
No, what is the parallel?
Normal way of rearing eels, isn't it? It's a normal way of trapping eels, right?
You put a decomposing flesh in. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That was the normal thing.
Yeah. I think you trap eels. But the other thing, like Nanda has pointed out, is very significant because there was a lot of participation of the Roman Catholics groups in the whole development of Nazism. Is that any connotation, any connection to that? Like it's a hydra-headed monster from which the eels are coming out. It's a pretty eerie sight. Is there any connection between the participation of the rightist groups within the church in Nazism to that whole iconic scene of the eels coming out of the horses or the bull's head? I can't remember.
In the movie, it was a bull, I thought, but okay. Yeah. In the book, it's the horse.
Horse. Okay. Yes, Nanda, if you could.
So this regarding this Christianity, I would rather go still into deep because I need to find out what happened. because my research is still going on. And it has some religious significance, because the day it happened, it was the Good Friday day. And that's the when they went for, and some religious significance is also there in it.
I was reading the account of a Roman Catholic bishop and cardinal, Celso Constantini, where he comments of a lot of things going on during the Second World War. He was part of the papacy, and that book brings out some very interesting insights into the role of the church in Nazism. So Celso Constantini, like Constant and I. It's a very well-rated book. I was doing some research on some paintings done by a Goan painter whom he had supported. So, he has some very interesting insights. Of course, he was very much for the people, and he protested what would happen if the church, ever aligned with them. So, there are interesting views.
Nanda ma'am, can you share a little bit about how this book connects to Midnight's Children, given your ongoing research?
Salman Rushdie had once said that he was very much influenced by Günter Grass novel that he mentioned in one of the interviews. And there is no direct connection, but structure-wise, there is a lot of similarities, because here is the story of Germany during the war period, and in Midnight's Children, it is the independence struggle in 1900, that is the before the rise, I would say in 1914, when Gandhi arrived from South Africa to India, and all the historical, then the partition of India, at the stroke of midnight, the birth of Salim Sinai, and then the 5-year plans, and then till the emergency in 1975, which was imposed by Indira Gandhi. So all these political events are also linked with the story of Salim Sinai. And the same way, the way it is with Oscar's life story, the story of Germany. So these parallel which are there, and both the protagonists start narrating the story with their grandparents. Just like Salim Sinai tells about his grandfather, and then how his mother got married, and then his birth at the stroke of midnight, and how the children got swept in the hospital. And he also has a magical power, just like Oscar has a magical gift, a supernatural gift of screaming. He has a nose which he can smell, and then they have a telepathic power that all the 1,000 children who are born at
Yeah, thrice. Yeah, RA. No, everyone's, they are very much into the discussion.
Hi again.
Hi again. Hi, everyone. Please reconnect.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just telling that how those 1,000 children, they meet in the night and they have a meeting. Then they also have India-Pakistan war, India-China war. All this, Salim Sinai goes to Pakistan, and then this division of Pakistan, Bangladesh from India, all these political events, they are also been interwoven into the story of Midnight Children. But the only difference here is the awakening the memories. Here in Tin Drum, he keeps on beating the drum and brings out the memory. But in Midnight Children, there is the pickle jar. Yeah, just like the preservatives. He has 32 chapters and he says 32 jars of pickles. And then to which the preservative is added. And then so that just like the pickles can stay longer, he also wants that the stories should also remain in the memories of the people. And that is why he has those pickled jars as one of the metaphor which he has used.
Wonderful.
Also, I found a lot of parallels between Oscar's mother going to meet her lover and Oscar following them. And there's a similar scene in Midnight's Children where the protagonist in Midnight's Children follows his mother going to meet her ex-lover after she's married. And the use of that underground space, what is it called? Not the attic, but there also you have, there is a parallel in the book as in both the books, in fact.
Yeah. Salim was hiding in that cloth laundry basket, I think, and he was overhearing the conversation which was going on between the mother and the lover.
Yes, yes. And also the lover is hidden during that whole period of this thing. That's where they meet, actually, the mother and her first lover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than any psychological or mental imbalance on the part of Oscar, would it be that the author is just trying to show how the short people were trying to take over the world at that time? Hitler being Hitler being lacking in height quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I don't know. Because that's the kind of conversation he has with Breber, where he says that if we don't take over, they'll control us.
They will take over us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought Hitler had similar ideas. I don't know. Maybe a different perspective.
Some of you have not voiced any opinion. Come on, Norbert, Sarojini.
Yes, I wanted to ask, what is the role of the planets? You know, he emphasizes a lot, like when his son Kurt was born, he says, the father was in a Jupiter year, the son in a Venus year, the father dominated by Mercury in Virgo, which makes for skepticism, etc. So what's the role of the planets? Because this is not the first time, it has been repeated.
Yeah, astrology.
Yeah. The astrological, the role of the stars,
in what
which
way is
were
it
positioned at the
reflected
time
in-
of his birth. And the same is also written during in Goethe's, when he was born, what is the stars at the time of his birth, the zodiac constellation.
Carlos, just help me out here. Is doctor already in, or is someone in the waiting room? Carlos, is someone in the waiting room? I can't.
You'll be able to see them. I can't see that.
Savya, I think only the host can see that.
Yeah, only the
No,
host.
I can't. Okay. I think everyone.
So I was asking why is it mentioned?
It's a style of writing, maybe.
Okay, it has no much link with the story.
I guess not.
Hi, Doc. Please respond. You come late. Welcome, nonetheless. A big warm welcome. You're really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I haven't heard everyone's comments, so I'll just listen first for a while.
For a while, it's going to be just 10 minutes.
I know, but
I cut off after that. You've read the book as well as seen the film, so you've not seen the film. Okay.
I've seen the film on the same link that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to pass any comments now. I haven't heard what you all said.
Okay.
I knew at least what you all were saying, there would be some kind of a flow.
Shubhangi?
Yes, Savya.
Come. Let's join in the conversation.
I don't have anything to say, so
okay.
I just had a little question, when we are talking about autism, it's just, I'm just stuck there. But wouldn't it be wrong to interpret it as autism just because we want to make some sense of it? Because we want to impose some logic into it, but inherently it's possible that things are just illogical, and also that would defeat the entire purpose of magical realism if we want to say that it might be autism. So I think I don't think it's autism. I think it's the technique is magical realism. That's what I was just just thinking about. So
also there's a danger in saying it is autism, because everything you will just connect to autism. It's better to discover the character and let the author, that is Günter Grass, bring in the whole narrative into full play through the character. Because Oscar is small, diminutive, but he is larger than life. He may be voiceless, yet his drum shatters glass. So there are lots of things that you can read into. So
yes.
Yes, Nanda, I think we have
I agree with Shubhangi what she said.
Now you're on the floor, you just conclude the whole thing, what we have not concluded. But the insights have been very beautiful, and thank you everyone. Before we are cut off, I'm saying this, it was a fantastic discussion. Over to you, Nanda.
Yeah, so I agree with Shubhangi what she said, that it is not autism because Oscar was a self-created dwarf. He chose to not to grow up, and it was not by birth that he was physically and mentally challenged child. He decided not to grow up. That was one of the main things as a protest against the adult world. So I agree with what Shubhangi said, and I'm really very happy that there was a good exchange of ideas and opinions and thoughts on Teen Drum. There were students also who have from the college, they have a part of the syllabus. So they had also seen the film, they have read the book, and they came also with beautiful insights. So I'm also very glad that you gave me this opportunity to participate in this book session discussion. In case later on, if there is anything another interesting topic, I may join again if you invite me.
You want me to add you to the book club?
Yeah, you can add me, but I can't promise you that I might participate on each and every session, because there are a lot of things also coming up on this front also. but it is really a lovely experience, yeah, joining all the people. And it's not necessary that one has to completely read the book, but still by exchange of ideas, you get to know so many things, which is very good.
Okay, great. Next month is our anniversary month. So we are not reading a book, but we will have a poetry session. And I want to ask a Goan poet called Salil to participate and get some other poets also to participate. But every one of the members who will participate will read their own poetry or a poem that they have really loved. Okay? So looking forward to next month. It will be towards the end of the month. 27, 28, 29. I'll just fix the date and let you know. But looking forward to, so no reading, no heavy books to read. But I think we have, enjoyed the last few months. I have. And I'm so glad we are growing in the right direction. Lizanne, what was your experience? You participated the first time and you gave some wonderful insights.
No, I actually really love having a community of readers. I think that's the first and most important aspect of this. And I think what's interesting is that this group is so diverse that it comes from, different perspectives based on, different lived experiences. So, I'm just looking forward to participating also in next month's poetry, because I'm sure it will bring out all the best of Goan poetry and, world poetry as well, because people here seem to be very wide readers. Yeah, so yeah, that's been my experience this time. Looking forward to more.
We really enjoyed the presence of the students, and thank you very much, everyone.